thanks for coming. Basically, tonight's meeting is just going to be about phase 1 and 2, and we're thankful that we have Marty and Mike here to give us an overview of everything, and then there will be time for questions. So basically, I'm just doing an introduction. Kristen's going to speak for a few minutes, Marty and Mike. So we're going to hold all questions for Marty and Mike until they're done with their presentation, and then they'll answer questions for about a half hour. And then they're going to head out so I can take over the last half hour just to give you guys some announcements and stuff about the volunteer program or any other changes here at PACC. As usual, please be courteous. Marty and Mike are awesome, and we all know that Mike's a volunteer. Marty says he's a volunteer, but I never see him.
Guilty.
But anyways, and just before I forget, on your way out, I have a box over here of Ben's bells that I was supposed to hand out to you guys like before 2018. So they say 2017 on them, so please grab one on your way out. Share it with somebody, hang it somewhere, keep it, whatever you want to do. And there's also a card going around for anyone who knows Frank Poland. He's a dog walker who was hurt a little bit, so if anyone wants to sign it, we'll get it at the end. And we'll go ahead and I'll introduce Kristen. So Kristen is our director of PACC, for anyone who hasn't met her yet, and I'll let her take it from here. Hi.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes of time tonight because, as most of you know, I came on board in July, long after the project design was completed and long after the beginning of construction. My first week, I remember the concrete and the posts were in the ground, so you could see what the facility would look like. I just want to share a little bit of information with you tonight about how we wrapped up 2017, because I think to a lot of us it felt like a really difficult year. For a number of reasons. My second day was the cat hoarding case from 12th Street, where we took in 60 cats with pretty extreme medical needs. And that was just the start of a really tough fall of animal intake and getting ready for the move. But 2017, when you look at the data, was our best year yet by all counts. We actually reduced intake by about 1,500 animals. So our total intake was only 16,500 animals. That's down from 28,000 just 5 years earlier. So that's a pretty significant drop, and that's thanks to two things. Spay-neuter programs. We invest about $500,000 into community spay-neuter programs, including TNR and own pet sterilization, and our pet support center. One big surprise, which we have to credit Marcy Vallon, who's sitting in the back in No-Kill Pima County, for starting. Thank you, Marcy. Because the pet support center receives 7,000 calls a month at this point. Thank you. 7,000 people are calling for help, and it's different than dispatch services, which are really for urgent. You found an animal that's been hit by a car in the road, things like that. Pet support is to help people, so we're helping them keep their pets at home. We have a grant called Keeping Families Together, which you may or may not be aware of, but it allows us to provide medical support so that people don't have to surrender their pets. I raise my hand whenever I ask this question, but how many of you have been in a point in life where if you had an animal that had a serious medical condition or injury that cost $4,000 or $5,000, you probably couldn't keep that pet? No, that's been true for me. That's true for so many of the people who have to give up animals, and so through a combination of working with the Friends Group funding and Keeping Families Together, we're able to keep a lot of those pets out of the shelters. Volunteers, wow, what a year. You donated about 80,000 hours of service. What does that add up to? It's about 40 full-time staff positions. Pretty amazing. Really when we look around the country at other shelters, it's one of the highest numbers we've found. There's 1,300 of you helping our animals every day. And you've probably heard me tell this story, but I've really been seeing it in the new shelter. They know your shirts. The cats and the dogs, they know your shirts, and they see you come in, and it's really just so heartwarming to see their ears perk up and the cats stand up and walk around their kennels and start to rub against the bars. You are their lifeline in the shelter, and we're so, so grateful for you. Fosters, we sent more than 2,000 animals to foster homes this past year, and with 700 foster families. Those are animals that very well during space crises may have in the past just been euthanized. Instead, they went to foster homes where they were cared for by loving families until they moved to permanent adoption. Our officers answered about 20,000 calls, investigated nearly 9,000 calls for cruelty, neglect, and other investigations, and we adopted out about 9,000 pets. Now you may have heard before last year we adopted out 10,000. We used to put our adoption numbers in with our rescue numbers. We're separating those out now. We sent about 2,000 pets to rescue or shelter partners. We adopted out about 9,000, so that total number is close to 11,000 animals that left here through adoption and partner placement, which is really extraordinary considering we only have 3 staff dedicated to working on the adoption work. And I know before my tenure, we didn't have any staff. This is all done through your love and effort to get these animals out. It's really amazing. 9,000 adoptions last year. This report is online. It's on our homepage of the website. We encourage you to go check it out because I'm only giving you a few numbers, and I know I'm going to sit down and just kick myself for forgetting a really important one. I have a few copies tonight, and more are coming. So we'll pass these around if you don't mind sharing tonight, and more will be on their way. And you can also go to the website where this is online to read all about 2017. Really quickly, 2018 is going to be better than ever. We're going to settle into our new home. We have so many exciting programs coming. Do any of you know who Jackson Galaxy is? Yes. Jackson Galaxy is he's a TV star who is a positive reinforcement cat trainer and who's had success with saving cats through positive reinforcement training all over the country. He's really well known, speaks nationally at conferences, and we've been selected to be one of the premier cat positive shelters this year, which means we're going to be doing positive reinforcement clicker training for our cats to teach them everything from how to sit, to shake with their little paws. So, and for our fearful cats, this clicker training is also used for those indoor feral cats. This clicker training is also used to help them come out of their shells so that they're easier to adopt and get into homes. We're also going to be welcoming Amy Sadler, the Dogs Playing for Life crew, to help us get playgroups really up and running, high volume playgroups for shelter dogs so that we can not just playgroup 10 or 12 dogs a day, but 80 to 90 with your help. And we know that playgroup is life-saving in so many ways. And if you've ever walked through the kennels after we've done playgroup, you know all the dogs are just so tired and taking naps. And it's also a really valuable assessment tool because it helps us know what dogs are social with other dogs. And for those of you who volunteer with the dogs, you know that's really hard to tell at the end of a leash because oftentimes all we can tell at the end of the leash is leash reactivity. The last program I'll mention that we're really going to be bumping up this year is our Pet Support Center. Pet Support's fully grant funded. We're dedicating one of those positions just to lost and found matching. It's maddening to walk through our kennels and see how many of the dogs are loved and cared for and well fed. They have homes and they have families, but for whatever reason, those people aren't connecting with us. Our pets reclaimed by owners last year was only around 1,900. We think we can bring that number up to return almost 4,000 pets home next year if we're proactive about it. So right now, a person who loses a pet, they have to find us. We're going to start to try to find them. We're going to start to try to find them to help get their pets home. Because this county is so big, people really don't always know that they need to come to the shelter to find their pet. So we're going to be trying to get more pets home, keeping more pets home. We're going to be upping those microchipping numbers. We're going to try, Marcy, we met with No Kill Pima County, and we're providing all these free spay-neuter surgeries. We're not microchipping the animals. So we're going to find a way to make that change so that every animal that we put our hands on leaves with a microchip so that we can always get it home.
Yes.
These are just a few of the things, and one of the changes we're making this year is we're not going to do quarterly volunteer meetings anymore. They're going to be monthly.
Yes.
Because quarterly isn't enough, and we have so much change happening, and I know it's been really hard on all of us, staff and volunteers included, and it's challenging to try to communicate with 2,000 people on any given day, and email just doesn't cut it. So we're going to hold monthly meetings, myself and our Deputy Director, Sarah Aguilar. Welcome, Sarah. Just joined us from Sarah. We're committed to being at these meetings with Gina facilitating them so that we can keep those communication lines open, because we know that frustration and confusion grow as communication breaks down. And we're all just really busy trying to save lives. So that's going to be an exciting change this year. Tonight's meeting, we wanted to let Mike and Marty have a chance to tell you about the history of the project, to show you kind of where we came from and how we got to where we are today. I came from a community in Northern Virginia, and my first project I was part of, we moved into a new shelter, and that shelter was not designed by an animal lover. It was designed by a company that designs animal shelters, and they were fine. But things would happen, like they would realize that they didn't have enough room for the dog kennel, so they would just cut 2 feet off of them and just say, well, we're just cutting 2 feet off, there aren't room. And so we inherited this project that I got into the building and was so disappointed, because you could tell that those people didn't love shelter pets. They didn't really know them. They didn't really understand that to cut 2 feet off a dog's kennel where it lives 23 and a half hours a day impacts that animal's quality of life. And so to be part of this project, and you know, it's an animal shelter, it's not a home, it's not perfect, but to be part of this project and to see the care and thought and attention to the lives of our animals that went into it has been really remarkable. And so they're going to explain sort of where they came from tonight. We want to have plenty of time to answer your questions though. Remember, most of the design, all of the design is completed. We're going to have to learn how to operate in a different way in this building. And it's been strange for people not to be able to walk around the URI dogs or to visit with the bite quarantine dogs. And the intention is not to restrict those areas entirely, but it's to make sure that the people who go in those areas have the appropriate training and are safe when they go in them. Part of why we've had these disease issues is we couldn't keep most people away from our sick dogs. So those changes happen for a reason. They're going to explain why all of that is true. We're going to answer all your questions tonight, and we're still going to have a million things to talk about. This is just a starting point. And we are already planning on having a follow-up meeting after this within the next 30 days to continue the conversation. But we're at least going to get started tonight and hopefully increase everybody's understanding about how we got to where we're at. So with that, I will introduce Marty is going to speak first. Marty Clell is the project manager for the county.
All right, so I'm a little under the weather, but I didn't want to miss this. I know it's important for you guys, it's important for PACC, and it's also important for the county facilities. If you need me to speak up, let me know.
Yes.
All right, I'll do the best I can. Is that too loud? Okay. I might not last the whole time. As Kristen said, we thought we would back up to the beginning, at least the beginning of when this idea became a actual project, and bring everybody up to speed. One of the things that I have noticed is I hear things through PACC that come either through staff, county employees, or even volunteers, and it seems like a lot of misinformation. As I talked earlier in another meeting, it's kind of like the phone game where information starts here, by the time it gets to the end, it's totally off base and doesn't make any sense, and this person is confused. So we're trying to kind of bring it back to the starting point and fill everybody in. How many people were here at the PACC meeting? Okay, this is a similar presentation. I'll try to go into a little more detail, but we presented it already once, so hopefully I can improve on that. So how did we get here? That's what we're going to talk about today. It all started, as you all know, in 2014 with the bond. Bond passed, thankfully. I think PACC was struggling before that time. I didn't know much about what had gone on at PACC. I think a lot of the community did as well, know what was going on out here. A couple important things for this, what it means to me at least, is my job. This is our guiding document as far as how much money we could spend. And it gives us the ability to build new and improve existing. And that's important. I know there was some concern about the renovation piece. It was none of our goals initially, but we had it in here just in case. It gives us that flexibility. And so this was our starting point. Immediately, we wanted to engage stakeholders. So we had a meeting out at Abrams where we invited every stakeholder we could think of that had a role at PACC, and there's several people in this room that you can see in this photo here. We did little roundtable discussions, brought up important issues at PACC, and just identified everybody who had a say in the facility, and we could take that into design. The next step was we hired our consultants. So we did an open selection process since we're a government agency. The winning team, hands down, was Line of Space Architects, who's a local firm, and they teamed up with Animal Arts Design. They're an art group of architects that design shelters only. They've done over 400 shelters or modifications to shelters. They really know what they're doing. And then the Correct Shelter Medicine program that they brought on and their key function, I believe, was to help us size the shelter. So help us establish, based on the data, the number of kennels, number of cages, and among other things. But that was one of their primary functions. The selection process included members of, I think, Tammy Barrett and Nancy Youngwright were on that selection panel, so we had some input from not just county and facilities staff. From there, we introduced the architects to everybody. I don't know if anybody remembers this meeting out front by the old flagpole, but and the reason I show this is from the beginning, we were right away, we were trying to get data from everybody. What was important to PACC? I think, what does it say? Wish list. And I think the other one says, actually I don't remember what the other one says, but it's about what's important to you about PACC. It's funny as you read down these, well not funny, but it's what we plan to do. A lot of these comments, they're in this document too that's being passed around, are what's in the facility. These are things we took them from you, we documented, like, you can see here, lots of light. Well, I don't think anybody can disagree, there's lots of light in the new building. Soundproofing the dog area. We know the quality of sound in the new dog areas is much better than the existing building, and the cats are separated so you don't get that noise coming over into the cat area. From there, we went into a series of workshops. They took place over in the old administration trailer. It took place over 4 days. We had about 100 people involved. A lot of sessions. We met with, we did tours. So here's a photo of Crete and Jose Ocaño and the architects and Kristen Barney walking around the existing facility, trying to understand what PACC was doing, so we could take those operations, analyze them, and see what we could carry over to the new building, or what we don't want to carry over, what they can improve on. I think it was interesting during this walk too, because they were giving recommendations right there. I mean, right during that walk, they were telling PACC, well, you shouldn't do this, you should do that, and the staff immediately started to implement those suggestions. Then we had a public forum where we brought the architect led this session, and where we opened it up for comments, goals, things you don't like about the facility. So we documented all this information as well. This was very important fact finding for the team. And this ended up in the program. This is what Kristen had passed around. It's only made it to the first row, and this is our document that gave us. This was our guiding kind of principles to start design. So it talks about the size of the shelter, operation, who's involved in the shelter, and then as Kristen was talking about, in the back is all this information, all these little stickies that everybody put in there. The reason we show this is we didn't want to just give this lip service. We really did want to solicit this information to use it. It's important, and as you flip through it, here's what I hear. Sound system that'll play soothing music for the dog. So we made sure we had a sound system throughout all the animal areas. And it goes on and on. Here's some more examples for those of you. Some were surveys where we just put a dot on your what's most important to you, so we can prioritize things. And then cards we had passed around. It also has this diagram, and the reason I show this, it probably doesn't make sense to any of you, especially if you're in the back, but I put this up here to show you how complex this facility is. And I didn't realize it going in, what was involved out here. I thought it was the pound before I came on board. So this diagram right here is the clinic. It shows all the relationships of each space to the next one. If it has a dark line, it has to be immediately next to it and have access. If it has a thin line, it has a secondary access. Dashed lines or something like that, or visibility only. So you can see just how complex this place is and how challenging of a project it is to try to make all this work into bricks and mortar type building, for lack of a better term. And that's all in here too. Coming out of this document and all these meetings, we identified these kind of overarching goals, and these aren't even all of them. These are just some of them, but some of the key ones. And this is where the focus of the design was really put on. There's a lot of things we have to have in the building. We have to have storage for this, and we have to have IT closets for this, but those don't really drive the design. What drives the design is this type of stuff. Making sure we support the life-saving operations, increasing staff efficiency so they can put more time towards the pets, not trying to find their way around or having to deal with something that's broken or doesn't work right. Hiring staff, hiring and retention of staff, that's a huge deal, I know, because facilities that are really poor have trouble keeping staff, and you want to have good staff here to support the animals and programs. Increased or improved medical facility, that's a key one there that you can see in the design. And then we also have project constraints. Every project has its challenges. On this one, the site. So we have an existing site here with limited space and with an existing building in the middle that has to stay open 24/7. That's very, very challenging to design around and to build around. As you guys can see, you're having to volunteer during all this construction. And those two things force us into phased construction, which is never anybody's goal. It puts a lot of hardship on you guys, staff, the architect, the construction crew. It costs more money. It was never really the goal, but that's what we were dealt, and that's what we had to deal with. And I think we did the best we could. Budget, obviously, on every project, no matter what. I don't care what the budget is. $100 million. It's always the driving factor. You design up to the budget, and then you end up having to cut. We couldn't afford everything we wanted, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that later, but that drives it. And then schedule. We have to keep things moving along on a schedule, because time is money when we hire consultants. When I'm working on the job, when the contractor gets hired, time is money, so we have to keep things moving. We have to make decisions quickly. From there, the concept design. So October 20th, we presented this out at Abrams. To mixed review, I guess you could say. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's interesting, from this concept, the plan changed very little. Some things pushed and pulled around. The NPR was back here, got moved up to the front so it had easy access. We had some dog housing back by Harry's Haven, and we thought it was too far from the clinic. We moved it around. A few moves like that, but generally we have stayed in with this concept because it made the most sense. I don't know, how many concepts did you guys throw out initially? I didn't even see them all. I know you presented about 3 to us, but even before that was scratch paper. I'm sure you guys had 20 concepts. So this wasn't just the first idea that came to the architect's head. There's a lot of thought and a lot of different options were reviewed there. And as I said, we had mixed reviews on it. And I think a lot of that was, in retrospect, it was really a design early on. It was really just to share with everybody, here's where we're at, here's where we're going. And a lot of people, from what I heard, had really detailed questions. And while a lot had been resolved, it was really early on still. You want to know exact numbers and locations of things, but as you can see from this, it's just a hand sketch. I mean, it's to scale, and a lot of thought is into it, but this is really early on design. And if you were at that meeting, I did a slide that had a linear path on where we were, and we were really at the beginning. And people had questions like, well, where's this walker board going? Well, those are very important. Walker board on this drawing would be a dot. So, we hadn't got there yet. So I think a lot of people were frustrated because of that. So what did we do? So we took that to heart. So we brought a group back, about 30, 40, I think they were all volunteers. And we brought in Animal Arts, Line and Space, and was it Danae Wagner? Came from Correct. And we talked about one big thing that we talked about a lot of things, budget, schedule, but one thing was Danae talked about right sizing the shelter. A lot of people thought it should have been much bigger. And I won't go into a lot of the details right now, but she talked about these length of stay, capacity for care, supporting the life-saving operations, and not having to have a huge shelter because it's very costly to maintain. And the focus should be on getting animals in and out. So let's put the money to that, not to building rows and rows of kennels. And then this was some of the data she had related to stress and having two-sided kennels, how stress drops dramatically, stress leads to healthy dogs, or unhealthy dogs, which you can't adopt. So I was really impressed with her presentation, and I think the group that was there we did this FAQ that was passed out, so people we're trying to answer a lot of the maybe the basic questions that people might have about the shelter. How big is it? And I was nervous putting this out, just to be honest, because we were so early on design. Even going through here, some of the numbers changed slightly due to a myriad of factors. But generally, most of it stayed the same. We did have a few cuts in a few areas. One thing I'd like to have today was we had a multi-purpose room that was twice as big. But we did not know the big climate, and we were not comfortable we had to make cuts areas, and that was something we said, well, let's open it up, and now somebody might be cool tonight, but Tucson fortunately has nice weather. We can use this during the day. It was beautiful out here, even though we didn't open it up, but it would have been. During design, we began pre-construction work. We moved the trailers. A lot of you probably know that. We put them up by the tent. Not the most desirable situation, but we really had to clear this area for the new shelter. So that work started. As you can see here, I'm sure you're all very familiar. Meanwhile, design is developing. Those sketches turned into hardline drawings in the computer. The architect kept working. We met with staff or refined it. We had at least 6 major submittals of drawings to review and for PACC to review, making small changes. Sometimes when we had to make budget cuts, we had to make hard decisions. We tried to figure out what made the most sense for PACC. It really wasn't a decision for Mike and I to make. It was a decision for PACC to make. And then construction started. And it went really quickly. So from there, I thought I'd show you all a little bit of the old PACC. You all know about it, but I think it's important to remember where we came from. So confusing signage. I'm sorry if I'm in the way here.
You're fine.
Hit this. Yeah, very confusing entries and signage. It was funny during the intern phase, there were even contradicting signage. It's when you go here and here. The lobby just packed full on a weekday, at noon, when you're trying to get you there to adopt. The old dog kennels there, the chain link, and cleaners right in the middle of the walkway, hoses hanging everywhere. Chain link kennels that are too short. Grooming done right in the walkway. Dog isolation in areas that really weren't meant for isolation. Harry's Haven. I wasn't around when Harry's Haven was built, but I think it was built for indoor-outdoor adoption dog housing and not isolation. So, but that's what it got used as. Cat isolation. Cat isolation anywhere they can find it. And then the clinic. I was really shocked. The first time I came out here, I went in the clinic and out, and then didn't really pay attention. And when I actually did a walk through it, I was really amazed. I was shocked at the condition, but amazed at what they could do in there. Using the bathrooms as their clean area, the showers full of beds. There's the bathroom. The tent, which nobody really likes the tent, but I think today it saved 9,000 animals, is what Kristen has told me. So, and from what I've heard, it was built before I came to the county. It was one of the demarcation of that change in PACC? Like, how do we stop euthanizing them? So they built this and it had I believe 90 kennels. initially.
9,000 is like the number that like would have died because of space, but it saved like countless more lives than that just by the animals that have been housed.
10 kennels, single runs, better than some, but not ideal. I put this up here. This was in one of the presentations we did with the volunteer group. So it kind of summed up PACC. You know, it shows Jose and Kristen with 2 dogs, or with a dog, and somebody working for PACC trying to push another dog away, and then somebody else with PACC trying to get through a door. They can't get through there. Meanwhile, you look at the floor, it's all wet. I don't know if this dog peed there or what. It just kind of sums up this inefficiency in the old PACC. And I see that, I would just say, I can't wait for the new facility, and that's kind of it in a nutshell, the old building. And then we have the new shelter, which opened recently. So, before I pass it up, Mike's going to talk about phase 2. There's been a lot of misunderstanding of what is phase 2, what's it encompass. But it's a few things to keep in mind. Phase 1 really is not complete because we have this kind of loose edge. I was going to say hard edge. This loose edge between us and that building. And we have to move around to the tent. Unfortunately, that's where the tent's at. If the tent was over here, it'd be so much better. So there's a lot of challenges. It's less than desirable, but you know, I forgot where I was going with this, but it's not ideal. It's less than ideal. And so we understand your patience, PACC's patience. We're trying to get them to wrap up the phase 1 as best they can, but there's like I said, there's this kind of gray area. It's like, do we do it now and it's disruptive to PACC, or do we wait but then they don't have it? You know, some of the yards haven't been completed on time, and believe me, we've been cracking the whip on the contractor, and Mike can attest to that. And we only have so much leverage, and they only have so much leverage with their subcontractors, but sometimes it gets pretty challenging. You know, some of the things we knew we wouldn't have enough of during this interim phase is storage. You know, so you can see we have all these storage units. Office space, you can see where people are crammed, and that's important because some of the people that you interface with, like Gina, aren't as accessible as you would like. And so that's pretty challenging during this interim phase. Laundry, that's a big one. We knew we were going to be hurting for laundry. Unfortunately, it's just hard to do temporary laundry. It's so utility intensive. We could just spend a lot of money trying to figure out how do we put a portable washer dryer here. And residential stuff just doesn't work. Parking's been a huge one. I can see there's not enough accessible parking spots, but we triple the parking when phase 2 is complete. And then the volunteer area. I know I've been working with Gina a little bit about trying to give the volunteers some space. So we have something in the works right now to turn the retail space into a volunteer area where there'll be a couple computers, a place to put things down, a place to have information like your binders and things like that. I'm looking for Gina, where she's at. Yeah, there. So we're trying to get that going as quickly as we can. But I appreciate your patience. It takes time. As a county entity, we can't just hire anybody. Fortunately, we have rules to follow. And so I don't want you to feel like any complaint or any wish has fallen on deaf ears. We've taken a lot of the information. Sometimes something else is already in the works, so we can't implement that idea. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. We just can't do it for whatever reason, money, code, or some issue. But it does take some time to get things going. So I appreciate your patience with that. I believe there's a feedback location for volunteers, or is there not? Or are you the one? Okay. There's a link? Okay. Yeah, Gina can probably fill you in later. There's a link where if you have a suggestion or a complaint, you can push it to her, and it makes its way through PACC and down into Mike and I, and we review those and try to figure out what's the best solution. Unfortunately, we can't solve everything. So some of the complexity of the like I said, sometimes we get two people saying two different things. It's, you know, so it's really hard to keep everybody happy. We try our best to keep it, to make it ideal. I guess, if no more, I'll introduce Mike to talk about phase 2.
Hi all, for those of you that don't know me already, my name is Mike Anglin. I'm one of the principals with Lion Space Architects here in town. Okay, I'm under the weather too, so I will try and speak up, but my voice may drop out. Marty will have to speak over again.
I'm here for you.
So I was asked to talk about phase 2. I'm not going to rush through it, but I don't want to spend too much time in case there's specific questions. So I'm going to give a sort of general overview of what the plans, what the elements of phase 2 are, and what it's going to look like, and then we can get into into your questions. Before I do that, just to sort of piggyback on what Marty was saying and to put some things in perspective, this new construction was about 42,000 square feet. The last municipal project that I was personally involved in was a library for the city of Phoenix, which was 25,000 square feet and took 1 year to build. So this significantly larger square footage, significantly more complex, just by the nature of having dog kennels and needing drains basically in every space that an animal will ever be in. Definitely raises the complexity. The finishes have to be bulletproof, which means they're more difficult and time-consuming to put in. But Sun was able to accomplish this project in 10 months. So yes, there are things that are not done. Yes, there are things that are really bugging me, even as we sit in this room that Sun hasn't gotten to. Where's my aluminum trim over here? But they're going to get to it, and there was a priority on getting PACC moved in and getting the spaces that really need to work with them. That being said, we are not done yet, and there's lots of people and animals that don't get their spaces until the end of phase 2. So even though this building is close to completion, it's not going to be used, it's not going to be able to be used the way it was really intended by design to be used until Sun is completely gone. We have all the remodel done, and PACC has its entire 60,000 square foot facility with the tent gone. So Marty touched on that with parking. I'm going to touch on it a little bit with the animal spaces and the people that will go in phase 2. This is a rendering that we did. I'm going to jump back to the image. Sorry, this is delayed after that, so. Okay. Phase 2, complete in the summer of 2018. So we've got another, less than 6 months at this point. So we've got to, buckle down and we'll get through it. But phase 2 really is all about the dogs. The cats have all of their spaces, including the medical isolation and all of their adoption and quarantine housing as of the completion of phase 1. So we don't have any cats over with the dogs in the remodeled facility. New entry experience is talking about how we're really reorienting how people are going to approach and circulate through the existing building. Life-saving operations, they get their office. Shelter supervisors get their office. There's 3 indoor meet and greet rooms, 1 or more of which could be used as a real-life room potentially. Increased laundry capacity, of course, this is a huge one. The laundry room will be where the old laundry room was, but we are getting 2 85-pound washers and 2 120-pound dryers. Just for perspective, the old machines were around 50, 55, and 65. So we're drastically increasing, and they're going to be brand new machines, so they're under warranty and hopefully going to be a lot more reliable. The two machines that were somewhat new, that were put in the remodel last spring are now the clinic laundry over here. Right now it's the only laundry PACC has on site, but eventually those industrial machines will be just for the clinic side of things, clinic and isolation. Volunteers, we get our break room in phase 2. There's an outpost medical eval room, so dogs on the main floor of the remodel don't have to be hauled all the way over to the clinic. If a vet is doing their rounds and they want to look at an animal closer, there's going to be an exam room within the existing building footprint that they can take a dog into and have a closer look. Again, that's all about moving the animals, not so much, and increasing staff efficiency so that they aren't wasting time walking all over this whole huge facility. Dedicated small dog puppy room. This is a sort of strategic marketing decision too. We want to put the most highly desirable dogs furthest away and make people walk through all of the So what used to be the front room, and you used to go directly from the lobby into that front room, that's now the back room, which is where we're going to put small dogs and puppies. Those kennel fronts are being replaced with all glass. That was a specific recommendation or request from Dr. Wilcox, so people can't stick their fingers into the puppies and spread disease. Additional play yards are coming over by Harry's Haven, out in front of the building where the old admin wing and lobby was. That becomes a really good size play and introduction yard. So, it's going to be really exciting to have play group out there, and I guarantee you there's going to be people before they even get to the front door, as they're walking up to the building, they're going to fall in love with dogs in that yard and want to adopt them on the spot. The other thing that's going to offer us is a really solid place to do dog-to-dog intros, is to do dog-to-dog intros. So if I'm interested in adopting a dog and then coming with my existing animals, I'll have a good place. I don't have to bring my already owned pets into the shelter proper. We can do it out front. Tamsin gets her spaces, not only a desk, but she gets a proper evaluation room and storage space for everything she needs. Again, that's going to be set up as a real life room just so she'll be able to make better judgments about some behaviors that we're seeing in certain animals. Are they, because it's in a shelter environment, do they do better in a residential environment? So that's going to help us understand where the dogs are coming from better. Old Pet Support Center, old Sally Port, all become storage. It becomes storage lockers for the different departments. So everything that we're seeing in mobile mini sort of temporary solutions right now will get a home in phase 2. There's also an additional industrial pass-through dishwasher, which is something PACC never had, and now they're going to have 2. There's one on this east building and then one in the remodel. So again, that increases staff efficiency because not everything has to be washed by hand. And then additional parking. So that includes not only an extension of the existing parking lot where it sort of dead ends into fencing right now. That will continue on. But also the entire footprint of the tent, once the tent comes down at the end of phase 2, will be overflow parking. So for big adoption events, for big PACC Volunteer Forum meetings, we'll all have a place to park. So one important thing is a total reorientation of how people move through the space. I touched on that a little bit, but I'm going to walk you through the plan to see. Right now, this is the part of the existing building that has been demolished at this point. The old lobby was in here, and this is where you used to enter into that front room and either go up to cats or back to dogs. From the existing adoptions interview transaction counter, where you can head out right now and turn right to go see the new pods, there's going to be the option to continue straight along this new circulation access. So in what used to be the intake triage room, there was an existing opening that was a garage, then it was filled in. We've taken that back to an opening, and you're going to pass through there. This area becomes a breezeway, essentially, that has shelter supervisors on your right-hand side. They have full height glass looking into their office. The life-saving operations team is going to be on your left side. Likewise, they have glass. And then full glass both as you enter onto the main floor and at the end, sort of terminating in this really big, great exterior exercise play training yard and landscaping out there. So people are going to approach the building in a completely different way. The other thing that we tried to do is really clarify circulation. So I'm going to show you on the map and then go back to the rendering to show you how we implemented it. Similar to what we did here, where we have staff and volunteer service side access on the exterior zones of these pods, and then we want the public to be in here, and we're keeping the public out of here. We're trying to apply that same type of thinking into this. So even though it's indoor-outdoor housing, we've got yellow here is service circulation, orange is for the public. The idea is that you can come in on this main circulation access, walk down this row, make a loop, come down here, and essentially with a one-way circulation path, see every animal that is up for adoption or on their stray hold in this housing unit. Here's the storage that I was talking about. Here's dishwashing and food storage. Red is the meet and greet rooms. Tamsin spaces up here. Laundry still in the corner. The old cat room, with the exception of that group room, which is either a meet and greet or real life, old cat becomes volunteer break room. So that also will have its own dedicated entry that's downplayed. So if you are a volunteer and you know it's there, you know where to go. But public isn't going to be wandering in through that entry point. Okay, so this is showing that glass. This window right here is looking into shelter supervisors. Back in the background, we see the new Phase 1 building, which is already there. Here is that full height glass that is now the entry point into the additional dog housing that is going to be part of Phase 2. One way that we're controlling that circulation and encouraging people to go here, not here, is by these big sliding panels. So this is a door that doesn't look like a door. Before hours, when we're here before the public is open, when Central Pet is cleaning, all these can be slid open and we can have free and open access to both sides of the kennel and not impede circulation. But once we're open to the public and we want to have more control over that, these panels can slide shut. Again, they don't look like doors, so people won't be inclined to come and slide them open. And we're also reinforcing the public circulation way with what we call these clouds. So this is the same material that's in the ceiling above the circulation way and above the dogs in the new pod. So it's a moisture-resistant acoustic material. It is the highest acoustic absorption material that we can get and still stand up to occasionally being sprayed or being in a high humidity area. In addition to that, so these swaths of this material are defining that public circulation that I talked about. The other thing that we're doing acoustically is anywhere we don't have these, up within the existing structure, we're adding an additional acoustic material. So not only are we reducing the amount of dogs on the floor, capacity-wise, because lots of those kennels that had permanent dividers and were split in two are now going to be a single housing unit for dogs. We're doing a lot acoustically to bring down the cacophony that we all remember. And it's been really bizarre since Phase 2 construction has started to go into these spaces and not hear that constant barking because it's, that association has just always been there. You see in this rendering the kennel fronts. They are a similar configuration to the existing. All of the flooring material will be replaced with a coved base cementitious urethane. All of the existing concrete walls will have the same high-performance epoxy that the new masonry walls have within the dog runs in phase 1. So a lot of this material-wise, you guys have already seen what it's going to be because we're applying the same level of finishes to the remodel. We did not shortchange the remodel because it's a remodel. We prioritize getting those high-performance products, finishes in the dog housing. One thing you'll notice here is we used to have chain link that just went right across the top of all of those walls, and you had to duct to go in. Myself, and I'm sure many of you, got your hair caught in chain link, had your shirt ripped on chain link, things like that. So those days are gone because we have proper stainless steel fronts. They have this solid area that allows not only a place to put information in the kennel card, but allows the dog the option of not being seen and sort of having a safe, hiding place or nook. We have glass on the top front. We have the grill on the bottom. This kennel front design is always a debate. That's one thing that I found, and every shelter that I visited has a different solution. So we really tried to work with PACC, and this was back when Jose and Justin were here, to develop what they thought the appropriate fronts were for our population. And we had input both from Animal Arts, who has extensive experience, and Correct from both a animal welfare perspective to develop them. So just to give you the idea, I already mentioned that this allows a hiding space or a space not to be viewed. We did glass up at the top so that if potential adopters are standing there, they're not looking through grills or chain link like they used to be. So it really increases the friendliness of the facility because you don't feel like you're looking at an animal that's in a jail cell. You're looking at an animal through a window. It was important to have this, and to me personally, because it's always my experience, for better or for worse, to want to have that physical connection to the dog. Another thing that you've seen in phase 1 and will continue in phase 2 is lots of sinks everywhere because we want people to get in the habit of washing their hands between them. In order for this to work, we've got to have that. These big sliding panels we see Sunny here. We think of those as a really good opportunity, potential tie-in for interesting graphics to liven up the space. And on the Friends of PACC side, which I'm on their board as well, we're really thinking of this as a potential fundraising opportunity because we can use these sliding panels for donor recognition or to tell some of the great stories of PACC, like Sunny and other animals that have come through here. So again, trying to brighten up, liven up the space. Within these acoustic clouds, we are punching holes in the existing ceiling and bringing in solar tubes. For those of you, we don't have any in the new adoption pods, but for those of you that have been, yes, the cat room. So the cat room has one of these solar tubes. And if you've been in there, you have seen how much natural light you can really get in a space with a relatively small opening because they have a lens up at the top that gathers light from every angle, and the interior is highly reflective. So we're doing those here. So even on this main floor, yes, it's not indoor-outdoor kennels, but we are bringing as much natural light as we feasibly do into this main floor space. So this is a side-by-side, somewhat taken from the same perspective. This column is this column. So you can see what used to be blocked off here is now totally open, transparent, connection to outdoors, ease of wayfinding, lots of visual connection. There's safety aspects for that for staff, and just to be able to keep an eye on things. It's better for everyone. Again, talked about the finishes, talked about how we're dealing with acoustics. But that just gives you a sense of where we are and where we're going. Again, this is just to touch on materials. The same supplier that supplied these for phase 1 is providing our kennel fronts for phase 2. Say flooring guy is going to do the floor in the main floor. Say painter is going to do the high performance epoxy. And actually, because we've gone through all of the process of this and them doing mock-ups and making sure it's right, my expectation is even higher that they're going to do a really good job in phase 2. Here's that opening. You can see that it's already been physically opened up, and unfortunately in this photo there's a piece of heavy machinery driving, but even beyond there you can get a glimpse of that backside that's already been opened too. So we've got natural light in there, and people are going to be drawn through this area, and it's going to be a lot more welcoming. It's not going to feel like a pound, it's going to feel like an adoption center. This wall and all of this with the conduit and everything on it is going to receive the same treatment that the phase 1 did with the corrugated rusted metal. That also allows us to insulate the existing building, which it isn't right now. So we're going to increase the energy efficiency of the building just by the nature that we're insulating a fair amount of the exterior envelope. And it was about tying the new and the old together. Our goal really for this, yes, you and me, because we've been here before, will know that this is a remodel. But my hope is that people who haven't been to PACC before, when they experience the entire completed facility, the remodel is not going to stick out as a remodel to them. It's going to feel like part of this new phase 1. So here are some construction shots. These are already from a week ago when we did PACC. So this is already gone. This is already gone. The space, when we toured it today, is already much more open. This area here will receive a new permanent shade. It's a carport canopy shade, but that's the efficient way to do something that's more permanent and better than the shade sails that we've got in our existing meat. And then this, where we are taking the photo from, this will be the big play enrichment yard. So for those of you that recognize that door, that is the old entry door from the lobby. So you can see that all of that's gone. Again, all of this will receive the same materials to tie it in. These windows will receive the same type of light scoop that the ones in the cat room have. Both the cat room and these have the worst solar orientation. They're facing southwest. So you may look at those and think, why are they doing this and then covering it? Why do they put a window and then cover it up? But it's because in the summer, when we have low summer setting sun, if we didn't have those shades, we would just be overheating that area where the cats are directly within that space. So that's something we try and do on all of our projects. We have appropriately sized overhangs. This is a good example. That overhang comes out to a very specific distance so that those office windows during the hot times of the year when we're concerned about overheating spaces will never receive direct sunlight. So we apply that same sort of thinking into the face. So this shows you where they were at a bit ago with all the chain link removed. All of this is going to get cleaned up in order to receive that new epoxy coating. All the flooring will be redone. This is the north end, so this is old puppy room, which will become Tamsin space and two of those indoor meet and greets. And then this is the admin wing and lobby as it came down 2 Fridays ago. So they're really flying, making good progress on phase 2. And this you see this right here gives you a taste of what the new elevation is going to look like. So we've got 5 of these that are on the old front room, and this material is what the parking lot side is going to be. One other thing that we did is we preserved that tree, and we pulled the parking lot away from the existing building, so we've got an opportunity to have nice water harvesting basins and vegetation that provides a buffer between the parking lot and the building. We've also, thought a lot about how volunteers are going to get out to the park. So similar to what happened with the new pods, that there's an in-gate and an out-gate, we're doing the same thing on this end, so we can have clear one-way circulation, and you're never going to be coming out of that giant, heavy green gate where you could never see someone and you have to yell, "I'm here!" The idea is we're going to have an indoor and an outside. So, as I mentioned, the tent is coming down, but it's a big flat area, so it's going to be really useful for overflow parking. There's, when intake was up here, Marty got a shade built. We're keeping that because it's fine. So there's also the opportunity for that area to be used by other Pima County departments or sort of for other events, either PACC related or not. So there's all of the room, just to give you a sense. So here's where our parking lot dead ends. It's going to continue through here and then step down. Landscape area through there. This is that big dog-to-dog intro or play yard, enrichment yard that I was talking about. This little canopy indicates the volunteer entry, so it again will be downplayed. It won't be highly visible from the parking lot, but as volunteers you'll know where to go. Come in here, go through the cat room, and then this is the old cat room, which will become where we as volunteers sign in and have a chance to chill out. There'll be lockers in there. Okay. So that's it for the formal part of the presentation.
So we're going to move right into question and answer, but I want to address one question that keeps coming up that's a biggie. Do we have enough dog kennels in phase 2? And this question keeps coming up over and over again, and I think we're all a little anxious, me included, thinking of, when we have 700 pets in shelter. So we have the capacity in the new building to individually house more than 500 dogs. And with co-housing, we certainly will be able to manage housing 700 dogs with co-housing. So dogs dying for space is not a concern. Yes, it's still going to be squishy when we're at capacity. But the reason I want to mention that tonight is that you all hired me as the shelter director to build programs that reduce the overall number of pets in the shelter. That's my job here. And so we don't want to have 700 dogs here in the summer. That's why we're doing the innovative foster programs. This year we're also going to be taking that Petco money and finding a person that spends at least half their time dedicated to transport with no kill guarantee. That means that when we transport pets out, they're guaranteed to come back to us alive if they have to come back. But we're going to up those transport programs, those foster programs. We're going to get more animals out so that we have fewer overall animals here, because you could build 1,000 kennels and we could certainly fill them. Do any of you have an equestrian background? Horses? There's this joke, I do too. And there's this joke in horses that however many stalls you have is how many horses you're gonna have. We could have 1,000 kennels and we fill those kennels and all of us go nuts and we're exhausted and our volunteers quit. That's not the idea here. We're gonna reduce the overall number of animals in the shelter, and I promise you that's what basically every second of my day is dedicated to right now. And so, yes, we're still going to be squished in summer, but that's okay. Because over the next couple of years, we don't want to see moments where we have 700 dogs. My goal for next year is that our highest inventory is going to be about 550, and we don't get above that. So that's what I'm here to do. I've had 6 months. Give me another 6 months. got a lot to do, a lot of new exciting things happening, but it's gonna take a little time, and then we're gonna get the snowball rolling down the hill, and it's gonna gather some steam. So just wanted to address that up front, because I know it's been a real concern for people. We're gonna now turn to you for questions, and we have Mike and Marty here for about another 30 minutes, so please, if you can keep your questions brief and stick to one question at a time. Gina, can you call on hands? You can call on people. You do. Gina will do that job.
Way in the back, Sherry.
So, do you have a name yet for phase 1 and phase 2 when everything's all done? Is there going to be like a north wing and south wing, or is there any kind of difference with that? For communication purposes.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I think that will really be up to PACC operationally. We refer to the east building as we were doing construction documents. The east building, the central building, and west. We also had a sort of logic in the way that we name things. You'll notice that the room tags that the county put on everywhere is, clinic spaces have a C. This whole zone has a D for dogs. This has A for adoption. It basically goes A, B, C, D, but I made sure to get A's for adoption. B is this part, C is clinic, D is dog, E is existing. So
I was just thinking, like, if you're at the reader desk and you're trying to direct people, you say go to the north wing, and go also to the south wing. I mean, that's just something to think about.
I think we would figure that out once we're done with both phases.
We've talked about signage, and it's really hard to anticipate where people will get confused. And as much as Mike and I thought that like the restroom side works well, we've heard there's some confusion because you come around and people don't understand. So we're thinking about something that's hard to predict, and so we've been thinking with PACC and talking about maybe coming up with some overall, like numbering the adoption pods, maybe trying to put a number on them. So if you're trying to point somebody to the second building, we can put a number out there, and it's easy to find.
Joe.
I would like to speak about the real life room. I know when the new building was pretty much completed, there was a lot of concern because we saw there wasn't a real life room. And I know people were very upset about that. So I asked the question, and it was like, I think there's one in phase 2. I see on the plan, there is one. There's the 2 meet and greets on the one end, and there's the room next to the volunteer room. I'm also hearing a lot of ambiguity, a lot of, maybe it's a meet and greet, maybe it's a visiting room, maybe it's a real life room. I would like a commitment from the administration that the room next to the volunteer break room be a real life room, like Mikey's was a real life room, because that, I'm speaking only for myself, but I think I echo a lot of volunteers here. That's a room for us to take dogs, to get them out of the kennels for a little break. It's not a room for the public to come in and meet a dog. It should be dedicated as a real life room. We can call it Mikey's, we can call it something. Nice furniture, soft lighting, DVD player. And I'd really like to have that commitment that that's what it's used for, and it's not a meet and greet, it's not anything else.
I'll start by answering that. The reason there's some ambiguity there is we were probably over halfway through design when I think the Mikey's room came about. There might have been some form of it before that. And so drawings are done, or almost done. So we kind of scramble and we say, okay, well the easiest thing to do is to turn one of these meet and greet rooms into it. And I think, and the reason Mike talks with some ambiguity about that as well as me is, it's really not up to us to tell PACC what goes in there, but it doesn't have a lot of requirements besides maybe being off the shelter floor. And so there's 3 locations that could be used for those, or they could be used for something else. But there's 3 locations there. We've talked about one being a real life room. But
I think that's convenient because that's where the volunteer break room is, and it's at the end over here, away from the main circulation. you know, where the public is, sort of, and it just seemed to fit there, to be that use.
Yeah, and I think, again, I mean, I will push for it, but I think we can figure that out sooner than later. I'm gonna go on this side of the room. Anyone over here? You in the back. Okay.
Okay, I would like to also jump on what Joe was saying, because that room is essential. I am a Reiki practitioner, and I take those animals in there, and they're fearful and they're anxious, and many times they turn around in that room just to get out of the shelter and have a nice quiet space to be. And also, are the meet and greet rooms going to be the same as in the phase 1, phase 2 meet and greet rooms? Or will they do the same, or will they be more homey?
Let's talk about these. I can't remember who said it. There was a comment on Facebook, can we put grass in there? Or can we put artificial grass in there? That's cleanable. The problem with that is there's no such thing as artificial grass that's cleanable. We spent a lot of time and talked to the experts and did a lot of research. So I agree that these feel pretty stark, but that's because they were designed to be highly cleanable and really durable. This was approached as a 50-year building. We wanted finishes that are going to stand up for 50 years with minimal maintenance. Now, and there's a limit to what the county, I'm going to ask Marty to plug his ears. There's a limit to what the county is willing to do, but PACC, especially with having such an active volunteer base, I think can go above and beyond that. So would I like to see some plants and greenery in here to soften up that space? Yes, but it's not something that we could do in a sort of official capacity within the project, because the county doesn't have the capacity to maintain potted plants that are within an enclosed space inside the building.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say to Joe, first, I want to remind everybody, we're here really to ask questions tonight, but Joe and those of you concerned about our real life room, I totally agree. We need a quiet space for dogs to get away from the chaos. Just like our staff now have a break room away from the chaos of the shelter, the animals need that too. Now, what I will say is that we're going to look at, once phase 2 is complete, we have several different options. Now, you may be right that that room is the best space. It may be really loud. We're not sure yet. So it's likely we'll wait till near the end of the project. And on top of that, we may consider, I think we need more real life spaces. In my last community, they were very creative, and they actually bought little mini campers and made those quiet spaces. And I think not only do we need a real life room in this phase, but we need more places for dogs to get away from all the loud barking and stress. So we're really tuned into that. You have a commitment that that space will exist, and staff and volunteers will work together to really figure out what the exact best space for that is.
Yeah, so I guess from my perspective, please understand that we want all of those things, and I think that we did what we can. When Las Artes approached us and said we want to do an installation on this site, Marty and I thought about where can we do that, and this is the first place that came to mind. We're going to have, it's not there yet, but it is going to go a long way to add some color and life. Those murals are going to be about PACC's stories and PACC animals, but we were trying to make these durable, cleanable, and shaded, because if Dr. Wilcox were in here, she would say no, you cannot put artificial grass anywhere. No, you cannot have a real life room that has a rug, that has a soft upholstered couch that's going to just gather up fomites for years and years. So these are the things that we were trying to balance, and everything is a compromise. Like I was talking about with the kennel fronts. Yeah, there's going to be people that love our kennel fronts, there's going to be people on the opposite end of the spectrum, and there's dozens of gray areas in between. So a lot is a compromise, and then has to be reconciled with the fact that we're using accelerated hydrogen peroxide, which destroys everything. Disease too, but also rubber, also any kind of steel. You know, if you remember Harry's Haven, the bottoms of these doors were completely rusted out because
How many
they
years?
specify, yeah,
7, 8, 9 years?
yeah, in less than 10 years, because an inappropriate material was specified for that. So that drove a lot of our thinking and decision making. But that's not to say that we can't start to interject some life into these spaces.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the walking paths during the heat of the summer, especially asphalt. We had such a mild winter, and and last year we had, oh gosh, what was it, 6 or 8 weeks where it was over 100 degrees?
Yeah.
And so I'm really concerned about walking the dogs on hot surfaces.
Is this asphalt you refer to, the path to the tank?
No, well, there's also asphalt coming down.
Oh, down the park?
The exits and the entrances to the pods. Now,
Yes.
there is one that's mild gravel now,
Yes, which
but
is,
there's also a large asphalt path.
yeah,
that
the
is
asphalt has to
going
be
the other way.
asphalt because that's a fire access point and a fire truck can't drive on gravel. But the intent is, the gate that's coming out here, like you said, we gave a gravel path that goes to the park road. Yes, the park road is asphalt, but we gave a gravel path to get there. And even the asphalt path by the tent is designed to be, you know, the fence isn't right at the edge of the asphalt. So a human can walk on the asphalt, but the dog can walk on the ground surface.
What about the re-entry to the pods?
The re-entry to the pods, I think that we should put the same kind of gravel that we have over here, directly adjacent to that asphalt path, up to it. But that's an easy solution.
'Cause I think that's got to be looked at all the way through, all the way down to the road.
Yeah. I mean, and I know when in that height of summer, I always hate crossing the park road. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about that. But we can control it within the complex.
To piggyback on what you're asking about, I think the concern specifically, just to clarify for anybody who's not sure, is that second gate that you guys were able to push through and get for us. Since that wasn't on the original plan, that gravel hasn't gone in at this point. And so I think that's what she's talking about, so that during that summertime, we're coming up that instead of the actual.
Yeah, so people are using that asphalt path rather
Correct.
than having, yes.
Correct.
That's something that can be resolved easily.
I'd like to have the kennel ranges, number ranges on the outside of the pod.
Okay. I
think that's an easy thing that
It's a
we'll
good idea.
work with PACC on.
Yeah.
Somebody has put up laminated cards of that.
So that's something we should add to our list,
It's a really
to get
good
vinyl
idea.
signage on there.
Yeah.
It's a big permanent.
And yeah, eventually, again, I touched on it a little bit. Friends of PACC is tasked with raising a fair amount of money for PACC to supplement their operations and all the things, all these great programs that Kristen's talking about and things that we all want to do. The county has allowed naming opportunities in this facility. So that's something that on the Friends of PACC side, we're still figuring out. But if a donor comes and wants to name this, I'm sure that Friends of PACC would be amenable to it. So these pods may end up named in recognition of donors, ultimately. So some of that thing like signage, we didn't want to go too permanent. You'll notice even where it says "Welcome to Pima Animal Care Center" up in the two lobbies, that's just vinyl lettering. So that can all be taken down and reapplied as needed. We tried to build in a lot of flexibility even down to that level in the facility.
Hi, everybody. I have a question from a volunteer that isn't here because she's working. And I know, Kristen, you addressed the space issues, but I'd like to have this question out there. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are supposed to house all the adoptable and stray hold dogs. The number of kennels will be around 205 single occupancy kennels, which is significantly less kennel space than we had before for adoptable stray holds. Our summer census of adoptable dogs is often around 200. How does PACC intend to cope with the overcrowding that is likely to occur? And I'm adding, and I appreciate what you, about the programs or whatever, but I'm concerned about this, and also what is the rush before we know exactly what's going on to take down the tent? Well, I mean, is that immediate, or do we leave that up in case there is this overcrowding? How are we going to do this?
The tent piece I'll start with. The tent is a maintenance nightmare, and it has a finite lifespan. Nobody knows what it is, but it's past that. Well, I mean, they tell me that, but it's holding up. You can see by the bottom edges, they're just full of water and the cleaner, they're corroding.
Well, and those of you that have been here, even, so that picture that I showed of the tent in here, that was taken with our first official tour, my office's first official tour with the facility with Justin and Zach. And already the color has changed significantly because it's degrading with UV. So,
well, part of facilities is out here almost daily, as probably some of you know, doing repairs because mainly the HVAC system, or adding circuits or checking breakers, and that costs PACC a lot of money. Plus, because it's not insulated, the heating and cooling runs continuous. And so it really needs to go away. And I understand your question, but it won't last.
Let's just look.
What happens with overcrowding? So, I mean, there will be in the summer, right? We're losing kennels.
We're not losing kennels. And that's one thing I'm not sure how that got out there. and because like Marty said, we did this FAQ to try and address that. The existing housing and holding units at PACC, when you include even pre-post-op, was 285. We're now the new facility, including holding and housing, which, to be clear, holding is a space where an animal isn't supposed to be day to day. A good example of that is this room that we have for an animal coming right off of the APO truck. It goes there, so it gets counted because an animal can stay there, but it's not a housing unit. It shouldn't be there overnight. It shouldn't be living there. But when you include those holding and housing units, we're up around 430. So just in raw numbers, there is a significant increase comparing apples to apples. When you look, for those of you that this has been circulating around, in here, and Marty, again, he touched on it because he talked about Corrette's intention with right sizing. You'll see here, they're saying that there's 385 housing units. So that takes holding units out of the consideration. And they were based on historical data and their understanding of where the trends are going, which we've been exceeding because our intake is decreasing faster than it was anticipated even in this document. So that's a benefit to us as an organization. They were saying that we needed 220 stray adoption housing units. In the new plan, we've got this, we've got all of this, this, and this. That totals more than 235. So, and part of that is because, yeah, we're not going to say, even though Corrette said we need 220, we're going to take 10 of these and make them isolation. It just doesn't work that way. It wouldn't work that way for the function of the building. So when we had to cut, because we were up against a really tight budget, what we did is we worked with PACC. We got the medical team and we got the operations team in the same room to really scrutinize how we could double up and share isolation, medical isolation, and quarantine custody. And what we did is from the back side of the facility here, we made some of those spaces flex between the two. So we had to lower the kennel count, the housing unit count, by 48 to get within budget. But we did not take that from stray and adoption housing. So one thing to keep in mind is, here's our old floor. None of this was being used for adoption. This was Giardia, other dogs. This was Vita Row. We lost that whole thing. This was URI, which now has dedicated housing space. So all of this, it's not just that it's adopted, it's not just that it's housing, this is healthy, adoptable dogs, hopefully, pre-altered, so ready to go out the door as soon as someone falls in love with them.
And if you consider just graphically, this is really close to the number of kennels in the tent. And so you get back what you had here that was not adoptions. That's the extra that you're getting, because all that has moved over.
So the number, and as Kristen said, yes, when you look at that correct capacity report, it says that it's making an assumption of 10.3 days length of stay. Because there's a direct correlation between the time an animal is in and the amount of housing units you need. So we are dependent on programs, we're dependent on foster, we're dependent on pet support center preventing animals even getting in here to achieve that target length of stay. The other sort of caveat to that is that number is based on a 90% capacity, which means 10% of the time we are going to be over that capacity. That is resolved by doubling up animals, by co-housing animals that can be co-housed, and by putting out those pleas to fosters, to other rescue organizations, and to the public to come down here and get animals. And that's one thing that has been difficult for me personally, because I feel like there's a real potential to turn into a negative sense, that we built this new facility and we're still seeing on Facebook or on the news that, oh, we need you to come down and adopt a dog, we're waiving fees, like just come and clear us out. But it is still going to happen because of the realities of the budget, how much we had to build, and that the capacity recommendation is based on 90%. So, 10% of the year, that's an entire month, more than a month, that, and again, this is based on last year's number, and the trends and the programs are going in our direction. So with this as a 50-year building, looking out into the future, we are confident that we've got the capacity that we need for our population. The other thing that Correct did take into account is human population increase as it relates to animal population. And there's actually a community comparison in here that compares Pima County and Metropolitan Tucson to other cities in the country. So it's very complex because, but as Kristen said, our approach wasn't because we were concerned about fiscal responsibility, and our approach couldn't have been just to say the highest amount of animals that have ever been at PACC ever is 880. We're going to build 880 housing units. It just wouldn't have been possible. And then who's cleaning all those?
Yeah,
who's air conditioning?
The bond required. It states that operation costs will increase. And PACC was smart before the bond, or right at the time of the bond, they hired some additional staff, knowing they're going to have a bigger building. But building like Mike said, 880 kennels, the cleaning requirements, and just the oversight requirements, the heating and cooling of all that, just was not the responsible thing to do.
So if it's a concern for you, I'd encourage you just to Google Correct right sizing. They have lots of white papers on their website that are available for anyone to read that really, and there's, it's sort of, again, shades of gray. You can read a general overview, or you can get down into an actual step-by-step calculation that they present for you to determine shelter capacity. And you'll see that's the level of thinking that was applied to this project. But the big takeaway is, Correct said we needed 220 stray adoption housing units. We didn't budge on that number, and we've got it in the new facility.
I'm gonna jump in here because it's 7, and we're like, I think you'll remember I said this is really the start of a conversation, and this is hard. It's hard stuff, and I think it's been challenging for us because we're like, hey, just give us the benefit of the doubt. Also recognizing that all the good that's been done in animal welfare over the past decade has been because people like you question people like us, and we welcome that. I think the dialogue and the questions are really important, and I hope that you can leave here tonight knowing that there's 2 true experts and a whole team that you're not seeing in charge of this project, and they're thoughtfully making all of these decisions. And having said that, keep questioning us and keep asking and pushing, and Joe and others pushing for a real life room. Those are healthy things to happen. So we welcome that. I want to make 2 more announcements while I still have the floor. One, we started shelter rounds. When I got here in the middle of summer. So I got here in the middle of the summer, and I'm walking through the kennels and start to kind of panic, because I'm walking through and there's like animals that are in distress, like potentially dying in their kennels, and I realize you've all seen this, right? At the height of summer, there just aren't enough of us. So we've started daily shelter rounds with a team that includes the behavior team, foster, rescue, and medical, as well as management. We're walking through every day and we're asking, what does this animal need today? What does this animal need today to get out of here? What does it need medically? That's number 1. Number 2, a very generous member of our community donated enough money for us to hire a 4th vet and 2 vet techs.
Yeah. Wow.
Which like sets my heart at ease, because I told my boss I would never ask for anything unless I really believed we needed it, and I really believe we need another vet and 2 more techs, and probably a couple more after that.
Yeah.
We need more medical support. We're trying to move mountains with very few people, so it's coming. We're hiring all those positions. We're in the process, along with hiring some other folks. So we've got about 21 vacancies. A lot of those are new positions. Some of them are existing, but you're going to see lots of new faces. We want to hire people from our community, so please encourage folks to apply. It's the Pima County job site. We're getting way more national applicants than we are local ones, and so please encourage people from the community, people who live in different parts of Tucson, to apply for these jobs, because we know that people from our community are perfectly capable of solving this problem, and some national talent, truly the best in the field, coming in is going to help us get the job done. So thank you all for your time tonight. We're going to continue this conversation, and we'll make sure that all of your questions get answered. You all know about the feedback form. So there's a feedback form online that Gina will tell you a little bit more about and how to access, but you can also use that for questions if you have them about the project. And please know that when you are asking requests of them, we're getting all of them. We're ranking them in order of criticality, how many animals' lives are impacting, if there's safety issues, and we're addressing them one by one. And I promised myself I was going to send you a weekly email, and I'm behind. So I'm sorry about that, but we're going to try our best to keep up with the communication. But we are tackling these issues you're running across and keep identifying them. So we're going to turn it over to Gina now to with the rest of me.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so I won't keep you guys because I know you're tired of standing back there. Kristen took one of my important announcements away from me. No.
Oh, sorry, Gina. I stole your thunder. Sorry.
The rounds. So what I wanted to mention, and I've been meaning to put this in the email, sorry. But now that you're here, part of rounds, what we're also looking for is someone to help take pictures of a lot of the dogs and cats. Mostly they're doing rounds on dogs right now, but if anybody wants to come and be on rounds, and I don't know the exact time, I think it's usually around 11-ish every day, but it could change, but I'll find out for sure. That they would love a couple volunteers to help out with taking pictures. So as they go around, obviously they check any clinical signs of illness, what this dog needs. This dog's been here too long, we need to market them, so on and so forth. So as you know, we don't really have any marketing staff or photographers on staff, so if any volunteers are interested in helping with that, obviously you don't have to do it every day, but a couple times a week, or switch it up. Just let me know if you're interested. I think that's a really important part of this, since they are actually going around. And then speaking of photography, we have a volunteer named Michael Clough, who is a professional photographer, and he's done a lot of photography for us here at PACC. But we convinced him to teach the volunteers about photography, and then I know a lot of volunteers, I saw it on Facebook, want to learn how to use certain apps on their phone.
Yeah.
So we got him to agree to teach some classes. So I'll be sending that out once we come up with some dates. So for anyone who wants to learn more about photographing the pets, using videos on your phone, making cool videos, again, it's another thing we unfortunately have to rely on volunteers to do, which is fine with me, but I know a lot of you guys are overwhelmed already with all your other work that you do here. But for now, if we could utilize your talents, or if you want to learn to take photos, whatever. So that's in the works. Another informational piece about, you are probably starting to see dogs with martingale collars on. So there was a grant that we got, like $20,000 worth, and so they bought a bunch of martingale collars and leashes, just regular leashes, like flat leashes. And the reason why they're putting these martingale collars on these dogs, so they're starting to do it when they come through admissions, and they're fitting them for their collars, and they're right away putting their microchip tags on it. Not their rabies, but just the microchip. So in case they get away from us in the parking lot or from home or wherever, that at least that will be on them. I asked Tamsin to make a video that I could send to everyone, just in case for some reason the martingale falls off or you have to put it back on, to make sure we do put those on correctly, because they can be a bit tricky. So she's going to make a video, and I'll send that out via email and Facebook. And I'm trying to get a straight answer from them, like, okay, so does that mean we have to use clip leashes now, your flat leashes, or can you still use your British style slip leads? So basically she said either one. The martingale is just a little extra something for the dog. But we will have, they're working on a place, of course, in the pods to hang all these clip leashes. However, there are some dogs that do require that certain equipment. So if she says, yes, this dog needs a flat leash because they don't like things going over their head or whatnot. So that'll be certain requirements that you'll learn down the road, if some of you don't know it already. And eventually all the dogs are supposed to have these martingales on. Also dogs, they're starting to keep strays, dogs that come in as strays, they're starting to keep their collars on them instead of taking them off, because sometimes people don't recognize their dog because they don't have their pink or blue collar that they had on before. So we're asking that volunteers leave those on, even if they come with a harness or something. They're leaving them on unless they're super uncomfortable or hurting them.
It's a Packers bag, you get that out of here.
So does that make sense about the martingale collars and also leaving the collar that they came in with on? Today I finally sent out an email. So some of you haven't been here for the volunteer staff spotlight that I used to do and then kind of dropped it at the wayside. But I wanted to start that back up, especially because we're all so divided up here right now, and everyone's in their respective areas and stuff. So the staff and volunteer spotlight is basically just 5 quick questions about yourself, a couple cool pictures of your face, your family, your pets, whatever, and same with the staff. So I'm going to send those out every week. So hopefully next week that'll start. I've already sent out some emails to volunteers and staff to answer those for me. So it'll help with name recognition, faces, and I firmly believe we all learn a little something about each other. It can help us become close friends, whatever, team. I don't know. You like volleyball? I like volleyball. Okay. You like drinking? I like drinking. You like the Packers? I love the Packers. So, I don't know, I think that's important, especially since we all work together. So I'm really gonna try to start that back up. And as far as the volunteer, non-existent volunteer area that we have now, I know that's a little difficult for signing in purposes. And then everything's over at the greeter desk, and I know you guys don't have access to me, and it's very frustrating for me as well. So I'm trying to do my best to get out of the office and kind of see who needs help and what, which then in turn puts me behind on other things, but I don't care. So please bear with me though. What else can I say? Am I missing something? Probably. Any other announcements?
Where is your office?
Well, if you're in the adoption area, it's behind the big cork board looking thing, behind licensing.
Can you point on the map there or something?
It's not really showing. Yeah, it's about right here. Administrative offices, and it's behind this big board. But the kicker to that is, and the reason why it's difficult, especially for our newer volunteers who have just started, by the way, thank you. They don't want a lot of volunteers or traffic back there, because there's licensing, there's money, it's cramped, whatnot. So I'm trying to still figure out a really great way for you guys to get over me. Yes.
Can I throw in there, having been helping out in the back and stuff, there isn't really an office back there. It's just kind of a large space. And unfortunately, all of the staff are using that space. So if you are back there trying to have a private conversation, a sensitive conversation, or even if you're just chatting with Gina, they're probably trying to have a sensitive conversation right behind you because there's not actually any cubicles. It's just an area. So finding Gina and getting a separate space, or like messaging her, making an appointment, you know, like that's kind of important, just because right now they're all sardines in there, unfortunately.
Yeah,
It's not pleasant.
Yeah, so just let's hold it together for 5 more months and we'll all be together. Other than that, I'm sure there's some other things I needed to say.
Where's your new office gonna be in the phase 2?
I think it's gonna be in the volunteer break room. And maybe in the live release office. I've heard different stories, so I really don't know, but I'm pretty sure break room and wherever else I can sit. Yes.
T-shirts. Reach the magic number of 15 hours. How do you get any volunteers?
That was a good question. So I don't typically leave the t-shirts out. I just kind of hoard them wherever I am. So the best way is to somehow, if we can meet up, or I can squish it somewhere, like up by the greeter desk with a name on it, I can do that. Because I know I'm not always here when you guys are here. So just email me size, and I'll just stick it somewhere and let you know where I put it, if that's okay. Yes?
I have a question. It's basic policy, and I haven't been able to get an answer. If a stray comes in, they're not placed for adoption until the 31st day. Is that right?
So, she asked if a stray comes in, they won't be placed on adoption until they're spayed or neutered. So that used to be, no, that never was, sorry. Pets are never spayed or neutered right away, depending. I mean, if the clinic has time that week, they try to push them out as much as they can. But dogs are held for 3 to 5 days. 3 days if they're stray, no microchip, no information. 5 days, I'm sorry. Yes. I have to go to bed now. 5 days if they have an owner, so they give them a couple more days. So now we're doing foster to adopt and stuff like that, so they can be foster to adopt if they're not spayed or neutered. But they do have to come back and get spayed or neutered before they get officially adopted.
But that's foster to adopt, I mean outright adopt, because that seems to have happened to adopt.
Yeah, so, sorry, so just that, then they have to wait, they're supposed to wait, go get spayed or neutered the next day, or depending when they do their spay and neuter. And then the adopter picks them up from the clinic between 3 and 5.
But there has been a few exceptions for some to come
Yeah, I mean, it's not just set in stone, so that's all I can say. Used to be,
But I mean, because that's at one time we can kind of control, additional unwanted pets.
yeah, but I think there's still some agreement that they have to come back to state. We don't just say, here you go.
Can I add into that in place of Rocio?
What?
Can I add into that in place of Rocio?
I don't know, what's your comment?
So it's preferred that they get altered right away for that reason. Rocio does have a list and she does follow up, and they do, so because they're foster to adopt, they still are required to come back to PACC if PACC asks them to be, because they don't belong to that person yet. So Rocio is following up on that. They're not just vanishing. It's supposed to be followed up on within 30 days. Does that help?
Yes, Sherlyn?
So how will a volunteer know? I'm not so worried about collars, but like harnesses. We've got a bunch of dogs in the tent with harnesses. How do we know if they came in that way or if we're supposed to buy ourselves a clip lead? Because there is no supplies in the tent to walk the dog. How do we know?
There should be
There is nothing.
box because Tamsin put it up there.
Where? Because we've looked.
Well, I don't know, it should be up in the cabinet area.
Over the
Labeled
desk?
tools.
Because I looked over the desk.
Yeah, she put 3, 1 in each pod and 1 up at the
But
tent.
again, how do we know if they absolutely have to be walked on that?
So then that should be labeled on the dog walk paperwork under the notes.
Okay.
Yeah. So just like she said it, for those of you who took the orange dog walking class, level 2 class, that any special equipment should be labeled on the notes section. But if you have a question about it, then I encourage you to ask Tamsin.
Okay.
If you're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
sure.
these dogs are dogs that, just are recently available to walk and have not been,
Because I know things
Yeah.
slip through the cracks.
okay.
Yeah, that's a good question though. Christy.
Do we have any update on when we're gonna get some lighting out back?
I was hoping one of you would ask them
Well,
that.
there wasn't.
I know, Keno told me today that Marty was supposed to get them tomorrow. 3, something like that. Said, there was a special name. Kind of like generator type. Not that you have to go like this, but you just turn on. So that was what I got today.
It's really dangerous for the customers. I've been here the last couple nights and I see them like, it's really.
Nope, and I brought that up to Keno today, and that was one of the main reasons. And they're gonna keep that lighting up until the tent is gone. And then honestly, I don't know what will happen after that as far as lighting goes. Yes.
Excuse me, but we have to go.
We don't want to be rude.
Thank you. Yes.
It's about Chameleon and those new screens that are in the pods, and who's supposed to be using those, and how do you get training, and how do you get password, and is that for all volunteers, or just for some volunteers, or?
Yeah, so
Repeat the question.
she's asking about chameleons.
Yes.
So yes, chameleon, I'm gonna start the training back up in February. It's just a lot of playing catch up for January on other stuff since we didn't have classes in December. So chameleon will start up again in February. So I'll be sending those dates out.
And after that, you can get a password and use them.
Yep, go get a password. And that's actually a really great question, and I'll leave it at this so everyone can go home. The adoptions, they're going to change a little bit of the adoption procedures to where they're going to get rid of a lot of stuff, and that volunteers who do adoptions especially will need to learn chameleon and get on there. And we're going to have specific notes, so we'll all have to pay attention to writing notes, including definitely staff, and the behavioral decomp information. So that way we're not missing any information when we're talking to potential adopters about a certain pet. So that'll be important.
You'll talk about that at the chameleon training.
Yeah, that and the adoption training as well.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
This is Nelson for a
Oh, okay.
There's a loose dog. The dog's got loose, and so they're hunting all of the parking areas, like the big one up on the hill and all of it. So if you see a dog,
I did see him. I saw him when I was first coming in.
Yep.
I stopped my car, I opened up my window and I talked to him very gently. He responded to me and then when I started, I tried to open up the door to have him hop in the car. I wasn't gonna chase him. And he took off down Silverbell, but yeah, I tried to get him. I keep Slipknot leashes in my car for that reason.
Do we know, is it a pack dog or?
Is he a shepherd or a?
No, it looks like a healer. It's a healer. He just got
Let's
up.
adjourn and go get him.
He's a healer, full black and white.
Yeah, all right, thanks everyone, don't forget your Ben's Bell light.